groundbreaking yesterday, groundbreaking for our new public works facility, which will take us into the next century with all the expansion possibilities that we have on the site. And with all the stuff we got going on now, that we can't do this, we're going to get it all under one roof. And it will take care of us for a long time, so the Orono citizens will be well taken care of in the future, which is what it's all about.
What are you doing currently?
Well, we're not quite sure yet. If we can't quite work things out with Long Lake, that'll be our next fire department. And it'll be where the fire department will be.
Okay. Well, since you're talking about it, how come you didn't put green energy on? You wouldn't answer that the other day.
You know, with all the lawsuits that you have filed and are currently have filed, discuss with you.
So, hold on, you are not going to answer that question. It's got nothing to do with the lawsuit.
Because
It's got to do with the public works building.
the attorneys advised me to not have any accessories.
It's not part of
That's
it.
a legal issue.
You are having a copy with the residents. I'm a resident of Orono. In fact, I lived here
You're a
longer than
resident
you.
who has a lawsuit against the city and me. And
That's
so
BS. I'm a resident of Orono. You are having a copy with the
If
residents.
you want to just ruin the meeting, and we can just leave.
Just answer the question.
I'm not.
Just answer the question like a normal
Okay,
person.
hey, guys, let me just say something. I mean, this is getting so out of hand. I don't think that we as citizens deserve to have to come to these meetings and listen to you. You have legitimate reasons, I'm not.
Listen to you. Really, that's what you're gonna say? I use my 3 minutes like everybody else
Every
does.
3 minutes is fine, but
I
it's,
respect-
It was a simple question.
I'm a resident of Orono. He's spending my money on that building. I simply want to know why there's no green energy.
that's fine. But
Fair enough question,
I know where this meeting's gonna go.
That's up to him. He can answer the question.
But the fact is that you guys have just gotta figure this out. You know, whatever is going on between the two of you, you've gotta figure this out outside of our meetings. And
How do you do it outside of the meetings? Please tell me that.
You get together, whether it's.
He won't. He refuses.
I understand. That's what I'm
I don't think you do.
To be involved in this, is that you need to, you know, there's negotiating things that can be done, but it needs to be done outside you can have your 3 minutes, I don't, but otherwise it's gonna be done out, because it's taking over every meeting. So I put it on all of us, and all of them, to figure this out. That's the job of the mayor, it's the job of the council, and it's the job of you guys to figure it out.
I'm
And
asking.
it's not getting figured out.
I'm asking a simple question. He refuses to answer, and I'm asking why won't you, I mean, this question isn't for me. There's a lot of people in Orono who would like to know why there's no green energy on that $18 million building. Simply asking for an answer. It's not disrespectful in any manner.
I'm not saying anyone's disrespectful, I'm just saying you need to figure this out outside of, you've got lawsuits going, you've got meetings that become very, you know, I've just recently got involved in the meetings. They just don't, they're not going anywhere. And part of your job, Mayor, is to figure things out. That's why they elect you. And this is one seems to be one between you guys that needs to be figured out, and not figured out every 3 minutes of the council meeting. So I guess I'm just asking, whatever the situation is, please take this out of, they can have their say every 3 minutes, but take this resolution to this problem. You know, if it needs going to negotiations, if it goes to arbitration, if it goes, whatever it does, just get it out of.
Great suggestion.
Get it out of our council, the council meeting.
You've got 2 people right here who'd be willing to do that. There's the one that won't.
And I don't know if that's the case, and I'm not saying it is.
Well,
Is
ask
there a
her.
reason why? You know, I asked Councilman Johnson not long ago, what are you gonna do about this? He says, we don't know what to do about this. Well, it's your job, sir. You've got to figure out what to do about it. You can't let it go. I mean, like anything else, I think especially like this, it just gets worse.
Pretty serious stuff.
So,
Very
I'm
serious.
just asking, is there anything you can do to facilitate the arbitration and resolution of whatever is going on between you guys? Is there anything you can do?
Well, like I said, with the current lawsuits that are under that are going on right now. I'd be glad to talk to you one-on-one about that, but I'm not gonna talk that in open forum, because it's a legal issue, and the attorney says not to have any conversations about.
You don't have any lawsuits
that or
or
anything
anything.
else at this point, and I'm sure you can appreciate that.
You could have verbal lawsuit with me, mine's sitting right here, it hasn't been
In
served
terms of
yet.
stopping people, everybody can come for 3 minutes, and if they wanna come and yell, they can do that,
Right.
right? And I can't stop that.
Nobody's yelling.
About that, and they obviously enjoy that possibility.
But it seems like you have, and one, obviously not gonna be pleasant, but it seems like you'd have the opportunity to go, even with the lawsuits, have the lawyer.
Okay, well, like I said, I would be glad if you wanna have a one-on-one coffee sometime somewhere, I'd be glad to talk to you about that.
So you can fill in with this.
But that's what I'm gonna leave it.
Was there not a suggestion with the group that the new councilwoman, joined and you came back into play for mediation for these issues specifically?
Well, I guess I'm not gonna address that, those are the same issues that go into the same thing.
She's the
Okay,
smartest.
so I'm not gonna, if you wanna, I'd be glad to talk to you, if you one-on-one, I'd be glad to talk to you about that.
Will you have coffee with me
Having a
one-on-one?
Session with people that are involved in the lawsuits, it's just, it's not inappropriate, and the attorney has said we cannot have those discussions.
You said this to a survivor
You
family,
appreciate that,
brother.
if you can't,
You said this to a survivor family. Do you understand?
so is there any other
The gravity
questions
of
that
that?
people have besides the lawsuit questions that are?
Yes, I have a question. Why
And the
didn't you
people
put
that are
green
not
energy?
involved in the lawsuit?
Yes, I have a question. Why didn't you put green energy on the public works building?
With
That's
all the
not
lawsuits
small
you
and next lawsuit.
continually have over the years with the city, the ones that you have now, I've already said, I will repeat myself. It's not appropriate to have discussions with you regarding the issue you have lawsuits with the city.
This isn't my question. I'm a reporter for this community.
That's
People
fine,
want to
but
know.
you're also somebody who has a lawsuit, and so that's the end of that discussion.
So it's not me.
Okay, he's not gonna answer your question.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. Everyone on the internet, he refuses to answer why there's no green energy on the building. That's your mayor.
Lawsuits that people have created with the person that is speaking right now, that's inappropriate, and I'm just not gonna have those conversations. And I've been advised not to, and I'm not gonna.
Right, you're not gonna tell the people of Orono why there's no green
Is there
energy.
any other stuff we'd love to talk about? Now, what other questions you have? I mean, well, again, we started with, we just had a great public works, and I don't know if anybody knows the background about it, but if you were interested in green energy, you'd have been here 2 years ago when we were talking about building a new building and what you could do, and not coming when the building is being built.
Why are you looking at him?
Okay,
You're talking to me.
you know, I'm talking. You want, do
You're
I have free
talking to
speech
me.
too? Do I have free
You-
speech
you
too, or
are-
just want to interrupt
You are
everybody
so
all the time?
passive aggressive.
Do you want to interrupt all the time? Is that what you want to do?
Look at how angry you are.
Listen, but no, I'm asking, is that what you want to do, is just interrupt all the time?
No, if you're gonna talk to me.
I mean, you guys can't help but interrupt everybody when they talk.
You talk to me. If you're talking to me, you talk to me.
Let's continue on how that evolved, if you would, please.
So 2 years ago, we started this project and designed months and months and months of designing in this room, city council, planning commission, all the things we did. And our current facility, which was built 35 years ago, is surrounded by swamps, right? So, and we can't do all the things that we need to do in that building. We've, all over the years, as our city has gotten bigger from 35 years ago, when we were much more rural, we had a lot of houses, a lot of people, a lot of roads. We've, obviously, the cities around us are much smaller, we do a lot more, of those cities' needs now, we do public works for a number of cities as well. And so our needs have gotten bigger, but we can't do anything over there. And so we had a piece of ground over there that wasn't quite big enough. And when Highway 12 went through, and they had some extra pieces of ground, I don't know if you guys saw the sign for years, there was a sign that said, State of Minnesota selling this 6 acres of ground. Well, they didn't, nobody won't go out. It was a very long, skinny piece, you could probably build 2 houses on it. And maybe they wanted too much money, I'm not sure. But they had their price, and we decided that we could add that to our piece. I think we had 18 acres, they had 6, so we had 25 acres total, gave us enough width. So we bought that from the state, and we designed a facility that we knew would take us, which what we need today is, with expansion, is about 65,000 feet. All the facilities are good. We have a maintenance facility, what we did a couple years ago too, because we got so big. We had so much maintenance going on that we obviously were keeping maintenance, outsourcing facilities to do all the stuff for our plow trucks, our police vehicles, public works vehicles, all that kind of stuff. that we had so much money we were spending, we decided to bring that in-house and hire our own full-time, maintenance facility people. So, excuse me, so we have an inside maintenance facility inside that facility. We do all of our own maintenance on all of our own trucks, plows, et cetera, et cetera. And we obviously can always go outside that because we're spending so much money. We're able to bring that in-house, so when we need something right away done, we're not waiting for other cars to get done in some other facility. We can take care of ourselves, and so it's all about, again, making sure Orono residents are taken care of first. And so that's what we have got all built in. It didn't cost us any more, it actually cost us less to bring it in-house because we were spending so much money outsourcing that stuff that we brought that in. So that was a big deal to have, take care of all that stuff firsthand. So, residents are taken care of, plowing, public works, police, all that stuff, so.
Well, you're right, it is a big deal, and I didn't follow city government's, but I lived here for 20 years, I didn't follow city government's closest at periods of time I had key issues, but I didn't know for that, I should have, been looking back. But I see a couple comment on the public works and how it's evolved, that's I wanted to hear you kind of recap there, which there was no revelations there, other than some things at the beginning that I found in print. When I came to breakfast with you last month, I very politely asked some questions about that and wanted to meet in the fire department because it was obviously too late to stop or change or modify the thought process on the public works facility. But I don't think it was at that time on the fire transition, if you will. Now that seems to have changed a little bit in the last 30 days, but I'll jump to that next. But the initial premise of wanting a new public works facility, which I understand that Orono hasn't exactly grown like a maple grove or a Woodbury or something. You know, we're 7,500 people. How much have we grown in the last 15, 20 years?
It's never gonna get.
1,500 people, and it's not gonna grow by that many people. We took on the public works for Spring Park, and who else did we do it for? Anybody else? The public works itself?
Well, we're a backstop for Benton Beach
Okay.
and.
Were we previously?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, not that, I mean, everybody's gotten a little bit bigger and things have gotten a little more complicated and roads and infrastructure. And sometimes you have to figure out, are you funded to even do this stuff? When I first got in the council, there was no funding for any of this stuff. So, people just like, well, there's no funding for our water, there was no funding for our sewer, there was no funding for our roads.
But in terms of, let's just talk public works facility here. That's what I want to kind of focus on so we don't deviate from that. The decision was made then, brought forth to you from staff, which I understand that if they feel like they're busting at the seams, or they need more room to, because you've now taken on, was that taken into consideration when we cut a deal with Spring Park to provide the facilities and or the services for them? That not only was it the additional cost, but now we have to add equipment, we have to add these things. Those are things that should have been in the process. I'm sure they were thought of. I'm not here to condemn people that try to make those decisions. But start off as the premise was, well, we got a leaky roof and we can't expand. I got the notes in writing here from a couple of meetings. A couple of them were closed session meetings or the council sessions, which I kind of thought,
Well, closed sessions are only legal. It's only relates to legal stuff. There's no closed sessions for anything
Okay.
besides legal laws.
work session meetings.
Work sessions, yeah, those are public meetings.
Well, again, I wasn't involved personally, and I don't see a lot of people even show up to the work session meetings publicly, other than maybe some of these hot buttons that are going on right now. But, so I go back and just did a little bit of digging, a lot of digging actually. And the premise was that we need a new roof on there, and we can't expand, and the neighbors don't like the backup alarms now. Well, one is that new developments there was not there 20 years ago, so that came in after the public works was here. So it's like building next to an airport, saying I don't like the noise of the planes. Two is the roof. I don't care if you're gonna use it for a public works facility, if you're gonna convert it to a fire department, if you're gonna expand the police department, if you're gonna just use it for storage. A roof is maintenance. That should have just already been in the process of being budgeted for and
There's part of the problem.
well, but, okay, $200,000 roof versus an $18 million facility, big difference.
Well, what's the question? I mean,
Well, the
it's-
question is
it's-
how that all evolves. Then it went from a 30,000 facility, 35,000, it jumped up another 10,000, and now it's somewhere at 60, or at the end it was a 60,000 facility. And there was room for a fire department over there initially, and then at the end of the design process, they said, well, there's not gonna be room for a fire department over here either, we decided to do that. Okay, that's all on the side. I think there was some lot of things that went on in the decision-making of the public works facility that should have been discussed more openly and more out loud with the citizens.
Like what?
And,
What?
well, no different than I suggested, and I'm gonna suggest in a minute here regarding the fire department. That thing comes front and center, and it doesn't get pushed at a city council meeting.
Well, you're making implications about public works, so let's stick with that first so we can answer that
Sure.
question. What is the question besides throwing accusations about things that you're thinking of?
I'm not making
What's the-
accusations.
What's the question?
You're getting defensive, I'm not
No,
making
I'm just asking you
accusations.
for what the
I
question
look
is.
back and with the process in which that was proposed, designed and approved and designed, there's a lot of holes in there that, in looking back, I wish I had been around to question some folks on and ask, maybe there was legitimate answers, and I'm sure there were.
Well, what are the holes?
I just mentioned a couple of them, Peter, the size of it, the need for it,
Well, we had all the design through the city council, we talked about the design, what the needs were. We had the drawings, we had drawings that showed all the trucks, all the things that needed to be in the facility. So explain to me what hole, maybe you weren't paying attention, and that's the hole, but all the holes you're talking about were
Hey,
there.
don't, Mr. Mayor, don't try to
That's what I'm
saying the whole is me, okay?
Well, what I'm trying
I'm
to,
here
when you
trying to
said
have an open
hole,
discussion on how the process was
when
done.
you said hole, I'm not trying to understand what the
Let's set
hole
public
is.
works aside, let's go to the fire facility.
Okay, well, so
Because-
your holes have been taken care of?
No, they haven't, but it's a done deal. You had groundbreaking,
Well,
you
but-
already approved $18 million.
But you're making accusations, and so I'd like to finish that conversation to show you that there is no
I wasn't
issues.
making accusations, eh? You wanna look up the
That
definition
there
of
wasn't,
accusation?
that there wasn't a process that we weren't talking about, we don't know the size, and I disagree with you on all that. Everything.
Gosh, I
was-
hate to go to this route, but you want me to start reading
Sure,
notes
absolutely.
from some of these, and I really don't wanna go. Total building area, 38,900, this is your advertisement for what you wanted for a new facility. Projected cost, $6 million to $11 million. This was from April of 21. And then shortly thereafter, it jumped up another 10,000 feet, it jumped up, then we jumped up the price tag for the 34,600 building.
Well, that's the size we have now.
The feasibility said it had placed a $9.8 million price tag on a 34,600 square foot building. This is from your publication that you used for the city publication, okay? Again, in that same thing, now I'm getting off the path there, but I come back to the notes from the meeting where I believe it's you that stated, we've got two hot button issues coming on. We've got the fire department, we've got the public works facility. You want everybody to, here it is. Walsh started discussion, council meeting, blah, blah, blah. He added the few sensitive projects that are coming up regarding fire, public works facility, and a few other conversations can be directed to the mayor and the council for input as well. He noted that it is protocol to give the facts and any other inquiry not related to the facts should be related to the mayor and the council. It's almost like right away, it was like you knew these were hot button issues. I want to say admitted or disclosed last time that you weren't even gonna have a public forum on the fire department going forward here.
We have councils on public forums.
As the other, now I don't see any faces here that were here last time. Maybe they are, I apologize if I don't recognize you, regarding that. There was 4 or 5 of us here that said, you need to put this into some special meetings where it's a discussion just about the fire and how it's all coming together.
I think we did answer that we are gonna have a meeting in, the first meeting in May where all the information is gonna get.
You have since done that. You did, at that meeting, you said, no, we're continuing the way we're going to go.
Which in that meeting I said, in May, because I think Jim Elder was the one who brought that up, and he actually shook my hand and said, thank you for that we're gonna have this discussion, we're gonna be able to talk about that in our meeting in May.
Yep.
So that was talked about, and we.
At your council meeting.
At our council meeting in May, we're not having any special meetings, it's gonna be all the
Well,
information.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and again, I was out of town, so I had to watch the video, but at last meeting, we discussed that, there was a discussion that in May and June of this year, you're gonna have some special meetings regarding the fire department.
We're not having any more meetings than the council meetings. So
Well, I
everybody,
think that's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, you know-
Now that's my accusation, okay? If you want my
I
accusation,
appreciate
there
your
it is.
opinion on that,
You're
but
gonna-
that's what we're doing.
Let's jump ahead to, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'd have to go back to the minutes from the last meeting, and I think it was Jim Elder himself that spoke about it. That if you take on the fire as it's proposed now in terms of the expense of it, that it's gonna add, $800 per $1 million house value, is that correct?
No, you don't know anything yet until May, because that's when all the financials will be presented. Everything will be presented in May.
Okay, then we will.
So I think you're way ahead of yourself on that, right?
That was quoted, I think, at the meeting.
I think you're ahead of yourself.
Well, I'm gonna find that and prove it to you, that.
Well, in May, you're gonna have the
Mr.
financials.
Mayor, I'm not making this stuff up. And yes, thank you, we're gonna have the financials. In the same note, you said,
And we've done everything to date, everything, including the public works, and we've already said, including the fire department, that we will not increase any tax rate in Orono. It's all gonna be, it's all in our budget. And I
how can
continue
you
to
say that when you don't even have the cost for the fire department?
because I have good intuition.
That's not.
Boy, that's.
That's ridiculous.
That's kind of putting yourself up there, isn't it?
Well, I'm okay with that.
Okay, I'm glad you said that.
Me too.
I came here not to be controversial about this and not to be adversarial about it.
Well, it doesn't appear that way, but.
Well, that's a difference of opinion. Why can't two people have an open discussion?
Well, you were the one who were accusing me of being, getting upset just 5 minutes ago.
You're the
When
one,
I'm talking.
you're the one.
So, I mean, it's a two-way street.
All right.
There is no two-way street. This gentleman came here to talk, you've been defensive the whole time. It's on tape, everyone sees it.
So to this gentleman's point of where the city's headed, okay, we'll set the fire facility aside, we'll set the public works aside, we'll set even lawsuits with these gentlemen aside. The tone between you and your councilwoman, the tone of your reciting Jefferson quotes at the end of the meeting, the tone in your letters are like, Mr. Mayor, you're supposed to be the leader, you're supposed to take the high road and pull people together, and whether they're on opposite sides of the issues or not, that's your job, and that's what you were voted in to do. Now, there's people here that say, I didn't vote for him, and I did vote for him, and they've taken sides, no different than our entire national government, or whole society seems to have gone so far either way, there's nothing in the middle. Then be the differentiator, and pull to the middle, and pull people together, and see what you can do to not condemn them, and not have them condemn you, and see if you can't pull this thing together as a city that we want to be proud of, and not a city that you just go, oh my God, here we go again. It's not specific to Orono. There's trouble in all city governments across the city. Go do some reading. I understand. But the rhetoric around here has gotten, just like this gentleman said, it's so uncomfortable. I came here to have breakfast with the mayor and have an open discussion, and yeah, you're right. I got my defense mechanisms up a little bit too when I'm told something that, when we tried to have a discussion last month, you told me wasn't the case, and I went back and did some digging. I'm not gonna go be Mr. Fact Checker and come out and line this up like an attorney would. Sorry, it's not worth it to me. But by God, there's some holes in it, and we've all said some things that aren't correct, including yourself, and you come up and say you're gonna do all this from a whim. It doesn't work. Be a leader, please. Pull people together and not separate them anymore. Doesn't matter if you've got a 4-1 vote up there or not. Listen to other people. Try and get these things resolved so we can get those out of the background. And mediation or arbitration might be a way to look at that. I don't know which one it might be, but I think responsibilities versus the lawsuits themselves. And see if we can't move on instead of sitting and beating ourselves up over the past. That's what I would like as a citizen of the city. Thank you.
Appreciate your opinion.
Well said.
It is a point, and it is not confrontational at all, but to his point, and I too, I've been a 19-year resident of this area, and 17 in Orono, and I too could not pay. So I'm not gonna even, what you've done in the past, good or bad, that's what you've done, and you get credit for it. But where I am, I'm on the fire department too, but it goes into the idea of you have a fiduciary responsibility to the city of Orono and the citizens of Orono because it's our money. And the definition of fiduciary is that there is a trust between you and the council and the citizens. And my sense is that trust is not there in this. Public Works is done, but it's not there with the fire department. The citizens don't really understand what the cost is and what the alternatives are. They don't trust that you have an intuition about the building of this fire department. Now, when you say we're gonna do that in June, sir, the problem is that you've already approved the new fire station. You've already spent money on the new fire station. And, we don't, and you're gonna have the and you did that in the last meeting, the gentleman that made it, said, you don't even know what the cost of these things are, which you just said. I mean, you have an intuition of what this cost is, and that's fine. I mean, but it's not when you're spending 18 million or 10 million or 6 million or whatever you're gonna do. You have to lead us along. And the problem is that we discuss all this in a public meeting, as new costs in a public meeting, like you said. You don't have to vote, you don't have to say a darn thing, and it just happens. That's the trust factor that you haven't given us as a public, because there are cost issues in this state. And how can you okay an issue a year and a half ago with no idea what it's gonna cost, or no idea what it's gonna do to the community, no idea what extra you're gonna need, once you put the fire station in, all the extras that you're gonna need to make that work. I talked to, and then when you hired the Long Lake Fire Chief to be your fire chief, I went to him and asked, in the last whatever number of years, have you had any complaints about the system? And he said, no. We had virtually, he said maybe there was one complaint. So now we're going out to spend, $10 million. We've already spent, $1 million on a truck and a fire chief that really can't be utilized until the end of 25. Theoretically, unless you make some arrangement with Long Lake. We just, it's just hard as a citizen to see that kind of money being spent. And being spent with really not any idea what the costs are gonna be. And so I just say that in my opinion, and maybe others, I just think the fiduciary responsibility of the council is not being used or in consideration. You as a council may think that, because I've sat on the city council too. But we as citizens who are paying this money, and if it's not paying taxes, that's it's going, but you need to have people in the community involved in this decision. We have no say, no matter what happens now. You pretty much closed us off. There should have been a citizens committee put together. When I did the fire, I was on the council in Long Lake. When we did the fire department, and we had the council from Long Lake, we had citizens from Orono, and, we had some real battles. Gage Moore and I just fought tooth and nail on certain of those issues. But at the end, we got a great facility. We haven't had that chance on the fire department. A lot of us who have been here a long time have been pretty happy with it. Now, your argument might be, or probably is, well, it's costing us too much. Well, you can negotiate that a long way, and it's what you're doing with the public works. In other words, we wanted to bring it all in the house. Okay, tell us why, tell us what the cost is. But it doesn't do any good to do it in May or June, because you voted. Now, in the end of May and June, if the costs are too high, will you guys vote again to say we're not gonna do it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's your decision. But that's all I have to say. I just think that in this case, the council is failing at their fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of Long Lake, and that's all I have. Or maybe Orono, and that's all I have to say. So,
Well, I appreciate your perspective of a citizen of Long Lake, because that's what it is. And
citizen of Long Lake. I'm not a citizen.
You were on the Long Lake City Council, you said.
Wait, yes, it was a long time ago.
Was.
Now I'm a 17-year resident of Warren. But
I
I do have to,
appreciate your input, and again, we are gonna be, all the information which our fire, committee is putting together with the staff will be presented in the first meeting in June, or in May, I'm sorry. And so all that stuff will get laid out. From the perspective of a fiduciary, I guess I completely disagree with you, because you can look at history, and all the things that we have done have all been for the benefit of Orono citizens. Every single thing we've done, whether it's technology, budgeting, roads, infrastructure. So what that tells the citizens, and I disagree with you in terms of what people think, is people tell me is we have done an absolutely amazing job of all the perspective and all the things that we have done, and to say that all of a sudden our consistency will just all of a sudden change, we're gonna do something for a different reason, is not true. We've got the same consistency of doing it for the right thing for Orono residents. We've been dealing with this for 2 or 3 years now, so this is not a new conversation, that some people want to say it's like all of a sudden just happening in May. This has been going on for 3 years. We've had lots of conversations, lots of public meetings about it, lots of conversations about it. And in the end, the residents have voted us in to make the good decisions that we have made over 8 years now, that have been on the council consistently, and that will not, and that has not changed. So that's my answer to your monologue as well.
Your monologue.
you know, that's, I try to make this, I mean, that, it's just in your nature, but just.
Well, you know,
just a comment on-
when you tell me that people do not like what we're doing, you can speak for yourself, okay? But when you cast a shadow of everything that we've done in the past and say, that may be in the past, but this is now, it's a singular issue, but the problem is it's not a singular issue. It is an issue like all the other issues that we're doing the right thing, we're presenting the evidence, and we're gonna make the right decisions for the residents every single time. And we've been consistent about that for 8 years now. We've done nothing different.
Well, then, so you don't feel that there's any, that, you know, you're making your decision based on what people tell you. What about what, you know, people are saying to each other out there? And they're only asking for, you know, what you're doing, why you're doing it.
And we've been presenting, we've been talking about that for 2 years at the council. Every single question that you have asked or talked about has been discussed at the council, up there, at public meetings. We've had many, many discussions. And our historian here, I'm sure, could probably go back and pull it all up and show you all the minutes of all the conversations. And obviously you've talked to Matt about it.
calling
and everything else.
Where the historian?
Well, you've got good history, so I'm just giving you credit.
I didn't take it that way.
See, I'm giving you credit for the decisions that you've made in the past.
But then you say, but putting that aside, you're making bad decisions now, but you know, I disagree with that.
I don't-
We're making the same decision-making process that we make for everything. I've never heard anybody argue about that when I started, we had $0 in the roads budget, now we have $1 million a year.
Congratulations.
Does anybody bitch about that? No.
So, they are concerned about the fire department.
Well, some people
Well,
How could you
are.
say,
Some people might be.
how could you say no taxes are going to increase when you're saying you're going on your gut feeling, on your intuition? How can you in good faith say that? That's what I want to know. Because that doesn't sound like a very good business plan. And you know what else? $1 million here, $1 million there, pretty soon you're talking real money.
18 million.
you know, I'm gonna end it in my part of it right now, but I'm just saying, I, you know, don't think, it was very easy for you to do, you know, to have discussion with the public about this. Now, you're saying, well, you know, you didn't come to the meetings. That's probably right, but it didn't touch them the way a fire department touches you, because it's really an important piece of the puzzle.
And I will not disagree with you about that.
And all I'm just saying is that you went ahead and made a decision, which you made at the time, you thought was great for the community, a year and a half ago, to go in your own way. But you didn't give anybody any reason to want it.
Well, that's not true either. Again, I will refer back to the council meetings and all the things we've talked about and the reasons why.
You know, you have, and I I don't wanna get, but the trouble is you never, you know, if you try to say that everybody can make a decision at the council meeting, I mean, I was on the council in one way. You have to, the council has to lead, they can't just have people
Okay,
come.
well, I appreciate your opinion on it, but I disagree.
Okay, well, that's fine, and I don't need to hear you disagree with it, because in my mind, you're wrong.
Which is okay.
I'm just having coffee with you saying that I disagree,
We can agree to disagree.
and I'll leave, I'm
We
gonna
can agree
do
to
that.
disagree.
Yeah, but I think you're gonna have some trouble on it, you know, going forward on this thing, with the citizens of Orono, and you didn't have to, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay.
Kurt, good to see you.
Thank you.
Looking good as always.
Well, thank you. I think it's hard to get 100% buy-in on whatever you do. And so I suspect there'll be people upset and there'll be people happy. And that's just life. And it doesn't matter whether it's a fire station or
Variance.
variance or any other matter. There's always opposition. And opposition is always the ones that show up to these meetings. It's hard to get people to come and say everything's great because they just don't voice that as loudly.
No, I appreciate it.
Unless you
I
give
a lot
up
of
free
that
land like
as well.
Mr. Erickson over there. How much land was in that deal? I did, was that half an acre or a quarter acre? What was that, an acre? Free land? How come I couldn't get the land behind my station when I asked for it? Clean as, Otten got all his land. How'd that work? Mr. Johnson too. That's a nice deal. So you gotta get on the council or some sort of board.
So is it your intent
Free land?
going forward regarding the fire facility or the entire fire department? The way he said it, I've heard it from others, it's a complex issue. This isn't just about the money, either. It's about the separation of Long Lake and Orono and splitting the departments. I guess it does come back to dollars, but is it your intention to only handle this through normal city council and with no special meetings and no specific to the, somebody said, you've got to explain how it's all evolved more than we hear at the city council, more than you can read in a paragraph. Because of the 100-year history, because of the, I heard an awful lot of criticism of the regime,
The 100-year history of what?
of the fire department.
Of Long Lake Fire Department.
Yep.
And we're not taking away the Long Lake Fire Department if it goes that way. We're not doing anything with Long Lake Fire Department.
The 100-year history of fire fighting and two things, okay?
No, they've had that for 25 years.
So
And
when
they've had the
back
station
when
and
former
and
mayors
the
and
Harvard
Mayor
11.
Jabbar and these folks put that deal together, which is being criticized now on the fiduciary side, which is supposedly the impetus of breaking this whole thing up.
And remember, we're not breaking anything up. The contract ended. The contract ends. It ends.
Yes, and
We're not
some,
breaking anything.
and some contracts
The
get
contract
renewed.
ends.
And a decision was made already. I thought it was maybe initially part of our negotiations, boy, but we started hiring fire chiefs and.
Well, taking them from that
Buying
department.
equipment.
Remember, we've had this conversation
Hey.
with Long Lake for 3 years now.
All right, I just want to know going forward, is this only going to be handled at the city council meetings and not specific special meetings, regardless of what's disclosed in that report that's coming out, whether it's $1 million or $13 million? Or is it your intent to only handle this through at city council meetings and the normal process of other things?
We're gonna handle it just like we've handled every other thing for the last 8 years through the normal process.
You're not going to have any special meetings and
I
open
think
the
I
public
answered
up and open
that
houses?
answers that question. We're gonna handle it the same way we've handled everything else at the city council meetings. We're gonna do it the same way. We're not doing anything different. It's all public. Everything's been public for 3 years about it as well. And you're gonna have a whole lot more information, as well as I will, in the May meeting.
But you'll have no input. These boys
Well,
have to give you the
everybody's
information.
gonna be able to come up and talk about the issues. You're gonna hear from Matt and Victoria, who are the ones who are putting all this information together. So they'll be the ones kind of leading this charge that have all the information. It'll be an open forum to go come and talk, until people don't wanna talk anymore about it.
An open forum at 3 minutes of citizens' comments, or an open forum where there can be discussions added regarding it?
Open forum where there'll be discussions. We'll be sitting up there, and you can come up and talk, and we'll have a dialogue back and forth. There won't be a public comment. We have a specific issue that's public comments, right? And then that's a 3-minute minimum. That's not part of that. It will be a general discussion.
But unfortunately, it's gonna be at a city council meeting where we're looking at variances and looking at, other things that are gonna.
Unfortunately, it's gonna be at a public forum.
Well, a public forum, I'm not saying to have a private meeting, I'm saying to have a public forum specific to the fire.
It's gonna be, that item will be a specific item for the fire department.
On the
And that will
agenda.
be a culmination of 3 years of discussions with Long Lake, where they gave us their offer of what they would want if they want us to partner with them, because this is their offer, right? To partner with them. They have acknowledged that we need to be the ones actually in charge moving forward. It's just now the logistics, and they've presented their offer. It took them 3 years to get there, but they finally did approve an offer, I can't remember, it was January or February.
It was January.
And so now it's going through all the machinations of all the different issues with a fire chief who can put together all the details of what is needed and what we need to have. And I think it'll be an eye-opening conversation for everybody.
Okay, well, what's eye-opening to me is how disingenuous you were when you just said recently that you are not tearing anything apart in regards to the Long Lake Fire Department, yet you hired away the chief from the Long Lake Fire Department. So to say you're not tearing any, well, you said, what, you're gonna interrupt me? You said that you were not tearing anything apart. Not only did you hire the chief away, but you're trying to get the funds, their funds over to Orono as opposed to staying with the Long Lake Fire Department. So that was a very disingenuous and actually not factual statement.
Well, I guess I disagree with all of that,
Well, of course you do.
because we're
I thought you were
85% of the budget is our funds. It's nobody else's funds, they're citizen of Orono funds.
No, I'm talking about the fire department funds.
It has nothing
The firefighters.
Yeah,
You
has no
guys,
retirement.
you guys try to
People
get
have
the
to understand about
legislature to
retirement
pass
funds
legislation
are
to get the
not
funds sent to
Orono
Orono
funds
from
are not
Long Lake.
Orono funds, they are actually our state funds.
Yes, and you try to get them to go to the new Orono Fire Department. You are
And-
trying to break it up.
And the fire, actually, the fire.
You are trying to
Let me speak.
Actually, the people at the fire department, if you actually talk to the firefighters, will tell you, because they've told us straight out, they are not worried about their retirement funds. They know when and if they need to get them moved over, the state will let them move over. And the only reason you move funds over is not to take them away from Long Lake, because they're not Long Lake's money. And again, they're not Orono's money. It's the actionable, Relief Association is the one who actually has the money. So it's the firefighters' money. And to have them stay consistent with their years of service, what the legislature does is say, because the minute you move from one fire department to another, you lose your years of service. And so we have told firefighters is that we want to make sure your years of service move over and it stays in a continuum, right? Because that's important. So they don't go from, because once you get to 10 years, you're like 50% vested, and I think after, and don't quote me exactly, after 20 years, you're 100% vested on your dollars you put in. So to keep that continuum where if you got 8 years in, you don't go back to 0, you get 8 and you keep moving forward. That's what that mechanism at the state is for. And because all the relief associations are all separate associations, they're not city funds. Like I said, the relief association has all that money. And so they're 501c3s. And so when you start a new relief association with the fire department, you need to be able to move those funds over to the new relief association, which is controlled by the firefighters, not the city. It's all the firefighters' money. The firefighters have said at this point that they're not worried about that because they know, and the legislature does this on a pretty consistent basis, when things need to move over, that they will put in, as an example, if you want to move to a separate, and they just did this with, there's some town out west, I can't remember the name of it, it's a kind of an odd name, that if you're going to move to a new relief association, you'll have up to 24 months, as an example. Anybody who moves over in the next 24 months to the new relief association, their years will continue in service and there'll be no interruption. And that's all that mechanism is. It has nothing to do with Orono, or Orono controls the money, or Long Lake controls the money. It's actually all in the firefighters relief association. So that's what that is for. And the fire people said, they're not worried about that right now, so we don't need to deal with that issue until we actually need to do it, and they're not worried about it.
Okay, can I just respond quick? Thank you for answering the question I didn't ask, and it was a good explanation, but you completely confirmed what I just said. You are setting up so the firefighters can go from one fire department to another, which I can understand that's exactly what would happen, but for you to say that you are not splitting anything up is extremely disingenuous and a lie. That was my comment. It had nothing to do with the whole explanation you gave.
Okay, does anybody else have anything? We've got a few minutes left.
What do you think about the new black lady sheriff in town? You're gonna be meeting her soon, I understand? Guessing she's gonna love you.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have it, I think your comment, I don't believe if you don't have it. What do we currently spend for fire protection as a whole right now? Prior to the adding of a fire chief and purchasing equipment, prior to 21, I'm gonna say. What were we spending annually for our fire protection in the city? Give me a ball.
Roughly it's about $600,000 a year, and that doesn't talk about the equipment budget or anything else, just the general fire budget. But I think there's gonna be a few things that'll kind of bring forward in May that I think will be an eye-opener of what has not occurred over the last many years, that needs to be occurred, that is putting maybe I could say potentially our citizens at risk, that we wanna make sure our citizens are not at risk. And I think we will do a better job of that.
Can you say what that is per se, in regards to fire?
Well, I guess when you look at some of the obvious one is look at a lot of the trucks and stuff that we have that are really, really, really old, that there's compliance thing, the NTSB, NST, I can't remember the initials, that they're all out of compliance. And so
Doesn't that come back to City of Orono, because you approve all of that budget that goes into that fire department?
You gotta remember, we don't run the fire department. So if we're not told about things, we don't run it. We don't get the approvals on, unless they're
So
brought.
why would you hire the chief away that was brought in that department?
Yeah, good question.
You gotta remember, Long Lake, at many occasions, have told us, which is very sad, they have told us a couple times, you can't talk to our employees about issues. And because the fire people are employees of the Long Lake. Even though we're 85%. As an example, when they hired the fire chief, did they ask any input from the people who own 85% or pay for 85%? No, nothing. We don't get any input. They present us with the budget. We have to rely that they're giving us the correct budget or doing things. In Orono, because we have, you gotta remember, in Long Lake, they have a city administrator, they have a city clerk. Two, right? In Orono, we have an entire HR staff, we have an entire community development staff. We have we have all this infrastructure to build to help get things done, finance department, to make sure that we are doing things on best practices all the time. And because we have all that, we have a little different perspective on how things should be done. And coming in May, I think you'll get a little more eye-opening on some of the issues that was one example. Everything they've got is out of compliance, but we wouldn't have known that until we had to start digging and get information with the fire chief that that applied for the job that we hired, to start getting more of that information because they were forbidden to talk with us.
Was that fire chief in charge when stuff went out of compliance? Was he? And so,
Long Lake controls the narrative because they run the fire department. There's a lot of people that were scared to say anything because they were told, because they were employees of the Long Lake. And we don't, and because of that, we've had some problems.
What percentage of fire calls would be attributed to Orono versus Long Lake? Probably about 85%. So is that somehow unfair that you're financing 85% of that department right now? Is that what the inference is? Who's Karen and Dante?
Any other
Do
questions?
you remember Karen and
I
Dante?
have one other question. When you were talking about the Relief Association, wasn't that Mr. Johnson reached out to a firefighter, and then Long Lake and Orono went to the state, and Myers and Morrison said, we're not getting involved, you guys have to figure that out. Isn't that kind of how that all,
Well, generally speaking, because what Morrison and Andrew Miles brought up, what they said is they want the firefighters to be all in, the firefighters want to come all over in one match. That they said they want, that's their goal, is all come over all at the same time. I'm not sure if that's possible, how all this all works, because you have to start a relief association, you have to have firefighters to start a relief association, so, but that's what they've said to us now, to our face, not to our face, but nicely.
The
The
firefighters
firefighters said they're not worried about dealing with that right now. They know when that comes, whether it's pieces or all at once.
Yeah,
We'll
well,
go to
I think
legislatures,
it's the
they
department, how
pass
are they
that,
all
'cause
coming over?
They obviously want to make sure the firefighters are taken care of, everybody wants to go to the sheriff. But they know that they will be able to get that done, which was news to us just in the last, whatever, 30, 60, 90 days, that they're not worried about that. So then we said, okay, then we're good too. If you guys aren't worried, we're good with that, we can wait at a later time to do that. So that's kind of how that played out with some of the discussions.
but
behind
my
the scenes.
thing was, Mr. Johnson reached out to a firefighter about this. This is how this kind of all started with the Relief Association and kind of caused a little bit of an uproar with the fire department.
Well, because you want the relief because there is a relief association, and so you
Correct.
want them to know, and so obviously you gotta talk to them, and Matt is on the fire, committee. And so, of course, we would talk to the relief association, because those are the people that would then say, okay, we're gonna move the funds over.
You only reached out to one person.
Okay, well, you know more than me then, but I can't imagine there's more.
He's the common denominator.
I'm just saying, I know the
Okay.
person you talked to.
Okay,
So, after Mr. Crosby got back from the US Capitol in 2021 January, what was this email from Ron Olson going around that says you may be contacted by an outside group asking questions about Councilmember Crosby? Please do not comment or answer questions. Yeah, please do not comment / answer
is
questions.
there any other questions?
Yeah, what was that about?
Stuff to chat about?
So you're gonna.
How involved were you guys
I
in the
haven't heard from
process?
him.
And who's
Have you
here
heard from him?
today?
Anything from you?
You too.
I'm taking it all.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that you got an opportunity, so.
I do want to thank you for proving today that you are trying to split the fire department. You just talked about all the firemen are ready to go. You've stolen their fire chief. You've worked behind the scenes to try to get their
Some
money.
people just like to have their YouTube moment, don't they?
Yep, that's
Yeah,
what that
Yeah,
is.
but you know what? Some of
This
us.
started before YouTube even came around. Keep it up,
Thank you,
Mr.
everybody,
Walsh.
we'll be back here in May, and this will be.
We're gonna find out what kind of gut you
What is
have.
the May meeting? What's up here? So I can't remember if, this is.
I bet you're weak in the middle.
May is, the council
Solid
meeting will
gut.
be May 8th, and our meeting will be, this coffee will be May 10th, so.
So the next council meeting, not May 8th.
So I'm just talking about in May, the fire meeting, or the meeting where all this information and we're related to, because the next one of this will be May 10th, but we'll have the second April meeting and the meeting in May, which will have all the fire information that Councilmember Johnson and Seals are gonna be presenting, which will be all new to me too, so we'll all get that information, and then we can chat about it here too on May 10th.
What about David Hans? Do you know who that is?
All right,
The
thanks.
chairman of the Minnesota GOP.
Great, thank you, I appreciate everybody's time.
Expect a call from him.
All right, thanks.
Asshole.
Gotta agree with that.
What an asshole. He's gonna deal with that. He's gonna deal with that. Pimp that shit to me. He's gonna deal with it.
Remember, you all have the opportunity to.
Yeah, 3 minutes every 2 weeks.